Welcome to Mind Your Wedding Business Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Dennis. In addition to leading the charge at Wedding IQ, I also run Fantasy Sound Event Services, a lighting and entertainment company based in Livermore, California, that I founded over 35 years ago. Each week on this podcast, you'll hear thought-provoking and empowering interviews with wedding professionals who have found success in the industry. If you're a business-minded wedding pro who loves love, but also cares about their bottom line, buckle up and get ready to learn from a new industry expert each week. All right, folks, welcome to the next episode of Mind Your Wedding Business. I am excited today to have Randi from Merri. She's the founder and CEO, and we're going to be talking connecting the dots between client expectations and tech. Something I love, something that she does. So we're going to have a good time today talking about all this stuff. So, Randi, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got where we are today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Kevin. So it's kind of an unconventional journey here. I consider myself, sadly, an events industry outsider. I planned one event in my life, which was my own wedding, and that's what here.
Really? So that one wedding got you. Okay, interesting.
Right. Yeah,
cool.
Yeah. Throughout that process, I really struggled to understand the decisions that I needed to make, specifically as it related to like the rentals, decor, and really everything visual, which makes a huge impact on the day of the event. And so I found myself kind of cobbling it together in PowerPoint, like cropping and arranging and grouping different things from like rental company websites and Minted and Pinterest. And in that moment, I, had that light bulb of, there's got to be a better way. I had spent my career at that point in e-commerce. So I said, okay, there's kind of these applications that exist out there for interior design, right? Where you can create a rendering of your home or your apartment and drag and drop the sofa from Pottery Barn and the table from West Elm and the bookshelf from wherever, right? And then you see it all in one picture because you're not buying everything from one place. And then you can, check out. I said, why isn't there that concept in event planning where you can design every aspect of your event, from the furniture to the linens, lighting and florals, staging, flooring, everything, and ultimately kind of see where you can book, buy, or rent those things kind of wrapped up in a 3D application, because how else are you supposed to make these decisions if you can't see it within your venue? So that was 4 years ago.
Wow.
Here we are today.
And here we are today. So, okay, so then tell us a little bit about Merri as we get going. So what does it do? Obviously, you kind of explained it, but what the power behind it?
Yeah, so in lieu of being able to show you,
okay,
I think the best way of explaining it is the Sims for planning an event.
Someone else told me that, and I'm like, my wife loves Sims. So, all right, that is awesome. And then is it really easy so someone can take any venue that they're at? Is it like upload photos and then go from there? Is that kind of the process?
There's kind of 3 paths.
Okay.
The first is it might be a venue we already have in our catalog because we either work directly with that venue or, a planner or designer has asked us to add it for them before. It might be a venue we don't have, in which case, give us 3 days, we'll add it for you for free. Or it might be something that you want to build on your own. Maybe you don't want to wait 3 days, or maybe it's like a private residence or, a tented event. So in any case, we can accommodate.
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm going to start playing with this when we're done, because it sounds like something that I can, because it's so true. A lot of our clients can't visualize, and so we show them photos from the venue and I'm like, imagine this in pink, or imagine this way, or imagine this without that. And then this way I can start playing. I'm very excited to start using your app, to be honest with you. So, all right. So we're here to talk about client expectations in tech. So how have client expectations changed over the last several years?
Yeah. So going back to like the founding story of Merri, one, I was the client whose expectations were not being met because I felt like my client did not understand what I wanted. And I had to literally paint a picture to get there. And even then I wasn't totally sure that, they got it. And so when I back up and think about this more broadly, obviously we did like a ton of research when we were starting Merri on like, what pain points are we solving? A lot of this comes down to your client expects to feel heard and understood, right? In a time when they're doing this for the first and probably only time.
Yeah.
So they don't know what they don't know, right? And the common language that you speak with them is what it's going to look like. You might call something something, they don't know what that is, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you guys can kind of align on, well, yes, that's what I want it to look like, you can then go, speak the more technical language to whomever you need to, but they know that you got it. Um, I think the second thing is oftentimes a client hires you, what, 6 to 12 months out,
Yeah. That's about right.
right? And now you don't want to deal with them until what, 30 to 60 days out.
Usually 2 weeks, but yeah, okay, yeah, yeah,
And so there's this lull period where they're trying to plan things and feel like they're checking things off their list, but you just don't have the mental capacity or physical capacity to deal with them yet. And so giving them tools to kind of self-serve, but you kind of, manage, because you control it, will allow them to feel like they're making progress on the things that they feel like they need to make progress on, in that lull period.
I get it. All right, that's amazing. So the client then could upgrade, start playing in there and upgrade and say, I want now lounge furniture over here, and I want to do a flower hanging, or something over here, and they can then be creating more and more, and actually probably the vendors will make more money, if you think about it.
So that's the core concept, but it's up to you as their event pro what access level you want to give them. So you
Oh.
say, give them full edit access, let them play around, have at it, right? Or you could say, I only want to give them read only access and they can kind of like zoom around the space and walk through the rooms, but they can't add or edit things. So depending on kind of how much you trust them or how much access you want to give them, you can account for that. Um, but I also think, we allow you to just like export a PDF, like send them what you're thinking, and at least they know that you're on top of it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. All right. So tech, how can we tech solve this? Mary's, I'm going to say, is going to be one of them, but how can tech solve, client expectations?
So, one thing that I hear all the time from event professionals, this is not like me inserting my opinion here, is, this industry is so behind in terms of
Yep.
technology. I hear this all the time. And when I think about like why, right? Like why would an industry like be quote unquote left behind? I think there's a few reasons. I think the first is most event professionals are either solopreneurs or small businesses. And so there just isn't a big budget to invest in technology.
Mm.
And guess what? Technology is hard to build, which means it's expensive to build. So, we've been tasked with building really complex technology for, a pretty affordable price point. So that's one
Mm.
reason why I think technology hasn't really hit this industry as hard as it has in other industries yet. But obviously, we're trying to solve for that in creative ways. Um, I think the second thing is there needs to be a really good reason for like why you use technology. And
Mm.
I'm sure we're going to get to this later in the episode, but you can think of tech that you adopt for your business as both horizontal or vertical. So
Oh.
for example, like vertical technology or software would be something that is designed specifically for this industry. Merri is a perfect example of that. Okay.
Okay.
Then you have horizontal software, which is something like Airtable or like a CRM that you might use, Dubsado. Like these things were not built for the events industry,
Mhm.
but you can use them and adopt them.
Mhm.
The good thing about horizontal platforms is they're massive businesses because they can market to everyone. The challenging thing is you as an event professional might not, um, they're not built for you, so they might feel like they're not built for you, and therefore they don't totally do what you need them to do. And so that's kind of the cross section, I think, of, you need to be able to build technology that is affordable for event professionals because you're small businesses. And you also need to build technology that feels specific to
Mhm.
your use cases because it is a very specific industry. Very,
Yeah.
very specific. So all that's to say, how can tech improve, workflows in the weddings industry? I think that there is a proliferation of of event tech platforms that have come to market over the past 4 or 5 years, that are vertical in nature.
Mhm.
We are designing specific, no pun intended, we are
Mhm.
designing specifically for this industry to touch upon all of the different points in the customer journey. That's how I think about our software. So
Okay.
at the highest level of the customer journey would be like, how do you acquire customers, right? What is a customer's experience when they first hit your website to when they sign a contract with you? And then the second part of that funnel is how do you, manage those clients once they booked you through the event? We obviously, sit at the later side. We're not kind of like sales and marketing focused. So
Yeah.
think about the different touch points that are specific to weddings. There are now these different platforms that plug in along the way, that can ultimately become like your tech stack for you as a wedding professional.
Hmm. That's so many questions in my head, right? After talking about that. So if I'm a business owner and I'm trying to become more techie, how do you
Yes.
think a good approach is like trying to implement or find tech? Because because that's I think my biggest pain point is like, I love this, but I wish it did that. And
Yeah.
always, and like we use an inventory based software for our company because we do a lot of rentals of, lighting, drapery, and decor and all that kind of stuff. So our software is great at that, but not other stuff. And so we're having to use other platforms. So how does someone go about evaluating, finding all the above?
Yeah. So I think the unfortunate truth that we all just have to kind of live with is nobody is going to do everything really, really well.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Um, it's just too much to build really well. You could build everything in a very shallow way, but then it's not going to do things. Like, if I said we manage your CRM and your contracts and your payments and your 3D design and your this and your that, like, sure, maybe we do all those things, but then you're going to get into each of those and be like, oh, like it doesn't do so many of the detailed things that I need it to
Yep.
do.
Yep. 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 Yep.
Um, so let's just kind of align on that universal truth. Now, due to that, I think the best way to kind of assess what specific platforms you need to go after are assessing what specific pain points you need to solve. So, Kevin, when you think about your day to day, week to week, month to month, right? Like, what is the thing or things that feel the most painful to you? Like, there's probably two or three things that jump right out.
It's probably it's just having something that automates my, like helping me make my day easier. I would say like something that, like with dealing with clients, like that's where we struggle with. We wish we could put all our, check-ins and all that in one thing, and it automatically puts the dates in 3 weeks out, 4 weeks out, five, all that stuff. And we haven't been able to find anything that works for us that does that. That would be one. Because I feel like that's something we struggle with at our company is the check-in part. And,
Yeah.
we get busy and it's like, oh, we need to be checking in. So someone told me HubSpot. I don't know. I heard it's really hard to use. So anyway.
And that again feels like something somewhat unique to the wedding industry
Yep.
because you have these defined planning cycles and you have different clients that hit different milestones at different times based on their event date, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to if you're running, I don't know, like an accounting firm, like tax season is the same tax season every year. Um, and like month close happens every month. And so, there's definitely CRMs out there that are specific for the events industry. I'm sure you've looked at them. What
Yeah.
I would say is most platforms, and this, by the way, holds true for how we use software and tech in our like back of house business for Merri, right? So you mentioned HubSpot. We use HubSpot. We use Airtable. Those are kind of two platforms in that horizontal category that I mentioned before. That our business like really runs on. And the reason for it, like you mentioned, is how much you can automate within those tools. But it's not easy.
Yeah.
It's a lot of if then statements. And so
Oh.
you really need to break down your tasks into building blocks. So, for example, you said, I'm kind of going to make something up, but 3 months out from an event date, I want to send a client this document. I don't know, maybe that's reasonable.
Sure. That's reasonable.
And so, what are like the building blocks of that statement? Well, the first is you need to know a client name and the event date associated with it, right? So, those are like two pieces of data that need to be stored separately in whatever system you're using. I would imagine they already are. So, client name, event date, and then what is the milestone you're working towards? Well, it's like T minus 3 months. And then what is the trigger? The trigger is sending this email. So, it's, if we hit the date of T minus 3 months, then send this document, right? And it sounds technical, right? But at the end of the
Yeah.
day, every platform is going to come off the shelf with the way for you to input data. You just need to build the workflows around it using those like logical statements. Now, I'm not going to tell you to take the easy way out, but there are a lot of consultants out there that will do
Well,
this
I was
for
just going to say, it's kind of random you said that because I just went, so the software we use is called Flex Rental Solutions.
Okay.
And they called it FlexCon. So like a little 2-day training on their software. And so I went to it and I didn't, mind blown. There's people out there that can, like, if you're struggling with pinpoints, you could pay them, it's like a shortcut to get what you need every day. And if it's like, how much do you value your time versus trying to figure it out versus just paying someone to do it right for you and get what you want, kind of thing. So when I saw that, I was like, okay, I felt a little bit better about, the software. I've been on this software forever and it doesn't function. The CRM side of it is horrible. But the inventory side is like pull sheets, and I can look at October 13th and tell you how many of X, Y, and Z I have available, and how many are on estimates and how many, so it's pretty powerful. But but it did take a lot to get to that point. It's just understanding other things. So anyway, that's what I think a lot of it.
Yeah, and that's a perfect example of like it's just not going to do everything. It's really, really, really good at one thing that you need it to be really good at. You probably shouldn't rely on it to be really, really good at the thing that it's not totally meant to do.
No. And I think that's where, I think we all have to live in that space. It's like, one of our clients, because I live in, we're in Northern California, so we're in a little bit of the tech hub here. And one of our clients was a Salesforce person and was really pushing me to get on Salesforce. And I was like, I did it the whole dog and pony show with them, and I went through it and I'm like, this seems like it would take me months to implement and to set up, and I don't have that, I don't have that time or that luxury of that time to set all this up. So I ended up obviously not doing it, but it was just like, but in the end, if you had someone in your that worked for you or a consultant that you can hire that would set it up, get your needs, all these tools are very powerful. It's just finding them and evaluating them, I think, is the biggest thing.
Yeah, I was actually reading an article last night, not to throw like the flavor of the week buzzword in here, but on how AI is going to change CRMs.
Yeah.
And exactly what you just said is, CRMs over the past 10 years have been instrumental in, sales and customer success organizations being able to like manage their tasks. But it is so cumbersome. It relies on clean information inputs. So you have people spending hours of their week just putting information, into a platform to then take actions off of. And how like the future is going to be like completely removing that data entry component.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because just like based on your customer interaction. So like as a lead comes in, as you send an email, like as you're doing these things in your day to day, like an AI model can just input that information into the CRM, right?
Wow.
Without you having to take the step of like, I had this call, now I need to add call notes and I need to set a follow-up date for this, this, and this, right? So there's all of this that will be automated in your CRM eventually. This isn't going to happen tomorrow, but
no.
The point is it becomes much less cumbersome to manage your customer data because it's taking cues off of, the activities that are happening in your day-to-day business.
Well, and something like that will probably in the end make it affordable for small mom and pop type businesses to have something very powerful at their fingertips.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And you can also think about like the most basic form of, a CRM, because that's what we're talking about, is like an Excel spreadsheet or a Google Doc.
It
right?
really is. Yeah.
You can do a lot with a Google Doc.
Yeah.
And then kind of taking it a step above that would be something like Airtable, that you can run automations off of. And then a step above that is HubSpot, which you can then run workflows off of, and that integrates with your emails and SMS. And then the step above that is like a Salesforce enterprise.
Yeah. I wasn't ready for Salesforce. It's a lot. Yeah, it was, if I had 40 salespeople and we're managing, millions of dollars of
there's a time.
Yeah. We'll get there someday. All right. So where do we, so I'm a business, do I make time for this? You know, do I, do you recommend once a month evaluate tech? Do I evaluate it, you know, every year, every quarter? Like, how often should I be looking at my tech or my pinpoints, I guess?
So I recommend twice a year.
Okay.
Um, and it's interesting because we see this in our data is that twice a year in this industry correlates with downtime you have between peak seasons.
Ah, okay.
So use the time you have. You know, if you're in the southern states, it's probably right now.
Yeah, because it's hot.
When things are a little bit later, and then kind of across the board, it'll be Q4. And that's
Yeah.
when we see an influx of, leads coming in, contracts going out. Because guess what? When you're in May, June, like you don't have time to evaluate. And even if you do have time to evaluate, you're certainly not changing your processes in the middle of peak season. So
No.
my recommendation is twice a year, sit down, gather information from your team if you have one, or if it's just you, obviously you're doing it day in, day out. So um, what is taking you the most time? What is causing you the most headache?
Mm.
Um, and what do you dread doing the most? Those are kind of the three variables that I evaluate my time and our tech tools on. And then based on that, I recommend, this is by the way, like my personal philosophy, there's no data behind this. My personal philosophy is you should only ever try to reevaluate two of those processes at a time.
Oh,
If you try
okay.
to boil the ocean and change every part of your process at the same time, first of all, you lose the ability to control for is this helping or not? Because if you change all of your processes, all of your systems, and one of them is really messing with how things are working, it might feel like everything is broken when that's not.
Oh, okay. Good.
So
That's
I would,
good. Good advice. Good
yeah.
advice.
So I would recommend evaluating and only changing kind of like one to two things at once. One, because if you do more than that, you're going to feel overwhelmed. Two, because if you do more than that, it's hard to evaluate, did the changes you made work?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's yeah. Because I don't know the way I look at it. I'm like, you're right. It could get really overwhelming, and then you're like, I don't want to do this. I'm going back to the old way I did it, and then
Yeah.
the old way is archaic and taking you back to the Stone Ages, which was
Yeah.
probably Stone Ages in tech is probably what 10 years ago. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And taking from your question of like, well, how do you evaluate it, right? So, first get yourself start evaluating it in the right time of year. Second of all, don't evaluate too many things at once. Third, most platforms at this point have some sort of a free trial.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
and so you can do it on your own time. And I think that that's huge. And that's pretty new in the past 5 years. Uh, you used to have to get on a call with a salesperson every time.
Yeah.
Real, as someone who demos our product all the time, like, I get that not everybody wants to hop on a call. It's funny. There's a percentage of the population who would never do a free trial and expects to have like the one-to-one demo. I need to ask questions, hold my hand. But then there's also a percentage of the population that's like, I never want to talk to you. Like, please don't call me, don't email me. I just want to use the product.
It's funny, but that can be said almost in the wedding industry as well. That we have clients that need their hand held all the way through it, and there's clients that don't bug me. I just do what I need you to do and show up on the day of my wedding and thank you very much, kind of thing. And so anyway, it's I don't think we're that far.
Yeah, it's ubiquitous.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. So, all right. So we've evaluated our tech. We found our pain points. We now know we should be evaluating every 6 months. So, what are some of you also run a business, even though you don't plan events, like you said, you feel like an outsider, but we welcome you into our little inner circle. But what are some of the like favorite apps or software or things that you use to run your business?
Yeah, so I mentioned two of them already, which is
And Airtable, I'm going to say Airtable people are just, it's blowing up and it's the power behind that thing is huge right now. It's a huge, I feel like that thing has really taken off in the last several years.
it's so powerful.
Yeah.
Because again, it just allows you to break things down into those building blocks, and then you can do like an infinite amount of things with them.
Yeah.
Um, so Airtable and HubSpot, I'd say, if either of those platforms went down, we'd be in trouble. And then another one, we have a pretty small team. We're like 12 people, but we're all remote.
Okay.
And so critical for us is Slack, which is basically like an instant message platform
Yeah.
we use all day. every day. Uh, and if you have team members, in the field or wherever, like, I'm sure you guys have communication
Yeah.
platforms, that you use.
That's a huge one. No, because you got to be able to talk to your people, and especially when the rubber hits the road, so to speak. So
So to speak.
yeah. All right. So now we've had the tech. So how do we not lose the personal touch by using tech?
I love this question because I hate that there's this like notion of it's one or the other.
Okay.
Uh, and it's also why, by the way, you might have noticed that I use the word like automated in air quotes because I
Yeah.
also hate the word automated. Because, anyways, um, I think that if tech is used in the right way, things actually feel more personal. Um,
In what way? Just
yeah.
curious.
So let's use like the most black and white example.
Okay.
Going back to the example of your couples want to talk to you, 6 months out, and you're just like, I cannot deal with you for another 5 months. Now imagine if from the day they signed a contract, you had this magical workflow, which by the way, I'm happy to work with you in Airtable or HubSpot to build, of, the different milestones that happen, at this month, this week, etc. They would on day one have a roadmap of what they can expect from you, and therefore they won't expect any more or any less, and they'll know what is expected of them at certain
Yeah.
times. And so even though you're not going to talk to them for many, many months, the expectations are set and they have that roadmap and they know what to expect and they feel like you're taking care of them, even though it's very passive. So tech is what allows you to give a personalized touch in a fairly passive way.
That's a good way. Yeah. Well, and then I think that's a good way to look at it is that their needs are being taken care of when we're not, wanting to talk to them or wanting, don't have time for them at that point. They're still feel connected to us, and they feel like their money's not just. I mean, that's what a lot of people in our industry, our clients will say, I just feel like I'm giving you guys all this money and I just hope it works, because we're so tuned as we pay for, we go to the restaurant, we pay for our meal after we eat it, kind of thing. And so it's totally different in our way. So
Yeah.
anyway,
And not to plug Merri, but that's exactly what we're trying to solve for. Like, you can show your client exactly what it is going to look like before the day of the event. So they will trust you. They will have the confidence in that.
you've got me hooked because when I evaluate my software in a few months from now, I think I'm going to become a client is what I'm trying to tell you. So, all right,
Call me for a demo.
there we go. I will definitely do that. Advice. So on implementing it. So like, how long do you feel we're trying new tech? We evaluated it 6 months. How long do you feel you give it until you know it's not working? Is there like a magical number there?
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
When you hire a new employee, how long do you think it takes to assess if it's working or not?
I usually can tell. Well, it depends on the employee. Usually within a couple weeks, you can see
Really?
it. Yeah, I can figure it out pretty. I can sometimes. I'll hire someone and within like 48 hours. Sometimes I'll be like, they're not for us. But I try to give them the benefit of the doubt because I'm old and grumpy, is what I'm told by some of my staff. So being older and grumpier, I just have expectations, and I need people to, Does
Yeah.
that make
Okay.
sense?
So
So
I agree with you that within a few days, you can see red flags,
yeah,
right? This might not be a good fit. But you said you give people the benefit of the doubt, as do I. I think it really takes 3 months to know
okay,
if someone can turn it around, right? So there might
yeah,
be red flags, but I give them like, okay, the first month is we're just getting to know each other. Like, let's see kind of how you can ingest and intake all the information I'm throwing at you and just like learn the company. And then month two is when I can really see like how are they operating on their own. And if it's not working out, month three is the month that they can have to turn it around. And if they don't turn it
yeah.
around by month three, like we're done. And I apply that same process to
You're
technology.
nicer than I am, or maybe you have more patience than I do.
You know what I think it is too? You spend so much time hiring people that you want it to work out.
Yeah,
And
no,
it's
that's
the same with
true.
tech, right? You spend so much time evaluating it. It's like I went through, this whole process. I obviously saw something in the product that I thought would work for us. Let me give it a shot. Now, that also is a little bit different in the events industry because what I always say with Merri is give us one event, right? Just plan one event on Merri and you should be good to go. Um, whether that, means I'm designing an event in an hour and, you have an hour, or I come back to Merri several times throughout the event. But the point is the common denominator there is a single event as opposed to like a time duration. But,
Yeah.
my personal theory is give it 3 months to really work through the kinks and work it into your system. Because by the way, the first way that you implement it, you're not done. That's a
Yeah.
certain point, and you need to continue to come back to it and refine things. And that's how, by the way, we built software is you launch something, you see how people are using it, you iterate on it, you make changes, etc. When we implement a new process at Merri, it's the same thing. I have to say to my team all the time, this document is a living, breathing document. Like this can and should change because we are growing as a business and things should always change.
Well, and the one thing, like, just from that software, little retreat thing that I went to for a couple of days, the one thing that impressed me is they listened to what we had to say and what our pinpoints using the software was, and they're like, all right, we can actually make that change, and we could do this, and so that way I feel like it's always going to evolve, which probably is what you're, like for your team. You have a product now, but that doesn't mean that's what it's going to be 2 years from now. Like it's constantly
Oh
probably
yeah.
evolving and, getting better
Oh
and
yeah.
probably through client feedback, and that's, yeah. And
I
that's,
mean, I'm like mortified when I think about what the product was 4 years ago, right? But you got to launch with something, and then you just keep making it better.
yeah, I get it. I totally, I look back the other day, we found a box of photos and it was like from when we first started. And I was like, oh my God, we were horrible. How did people give us money to do that back then?
You got to start somewhere.
So, all right. And then one more thing on tech that I guess I think people really miss the boat is you're going to have to invest money into tech. And
Yeah.
that's what I think a lot of people forget is because they're like, oh, I found this free piece of software. It's probably not, it's not doing what you need to do. Like time is money and you have to invest to save that. And I mean, like, do you agree? I mean, well,
Yeah.
obviously you agree because you want me to
Yeah. I
spend
mean, I
money.
mean, to an extent, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's a reason why Salesforce is a lot more expensive than HubSpot, and
Yeah.
therefore people will fall into one bucket or the other. But I think any software that's free, there's either a reason why it's free, or guess what, they're selling your data. So
Yeah.
if you're okay with that, cool. But you have to value your time. And
Yeah.
this is something that I, as an entrepreneur, struggled with a little bit, more so in hiring people than evaluating software.
Mm.
Is, well, I can just do it myself. It's like,
Yeah.
well, is that a good use of my 10 hours a week to be manually inputting bills into QuickBooks or whatever it is, right? And so, both in terms of, hiring people, and think of like adding tech as like hiring someone, right? It's going to like amplify your productivity. Um, how how much time are you spending on it, and what is the value of your time?
Yeah. No, and I think that's the biggest thing people have to really evaluate is because your time is money, and the longer it's, I remember when I'm so old that I used to type contracts out for clients, and that's how long ago we had a printed document and I would type their, that's how long I've been doing this. I'll
Yeah.
date myself right there. So, but like now it's just like we boom and drop clients
Use
data in.
template, drag,
Yep.
drop,
Yep.
signature.
Yep. And send out for a signature. And, it's like we used to send out the contract and we'd be excited. And 2 weeks from back, we'd get a check back. And now it's like, it usually within hours, we're getting
Yeah.
contract signed, paid, done. Like the world has changed a long way. So,
Yeah.
and, so just, I guess one more tech thing. What, AI is the big thing, but is there anything else big coming in the tech world that you see coming?
So I think the other big news, which is like old new news, but it was with the launch of, Apple's new augmented reality and mixed reality glasses. Now, the reason why I say it's old new is because 2017 was the first like big gold rush to VR and AR, right? And nothing really came of it.
No, it really didn't. Other
It
than
did.
cool games, video games and
Yeah,
stuff.
like
Yeah,
a
yeah.
couple well, I can put these Oculus goggles on at some like immersive experience and, then go
Yeah.
home and never think about it again. Uh, and my perspective on this is uh, there hasn't been mass adoption of the hardware. And so, what are we all doing all day and all night? We're sitting on our either at a desk or on our couch with a laptop or a tablet.
Hmm.
And so the technology that people have adopted today is technology that has been enabled by the devices that we're on, or obviously on your phone, right?
Yeah.
How did we forget that? And so I think that has really been what's holding people back, because like what is a really valid use case for why I would go spend $300 on a pair of goggles and own another device and put those on and switch, etc. And so I think that what hopefully now comes from this, because this is the world that we play in, is immersive technology, is as more kind of streamlined, less expensive, less friction filled devices come out to help people kind of bridge the physical and digital space. Hopefully this will now kind of become the era of mass consumer adoption there.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. So like we can put clients in goggles and just bring them into their space and design in the space with them watching.
I think a lot of it is actually going to come on here.
You think
Sorry,
so?
that's my daughter and my dog.
That's a no. I got all kinds of stuff on here too.
Yeah, I think that the biggest issue is having to purchase uh, and just have and own like a whole nother device. Now, obviously, that's like what Apple just unveiled, but I think that uh, spatial computing is coming a long way. Like, okay, think about what we do. You can now
Okay.
go into a venue and use your phone and scan it,
Yeah.
right? Get like pretty accurate measurements, and we can use that to make a 3D model off of it. You can now take a picture of your mug, and there's AI tools that will translate that into a 3D model. So I think that I get excited by tech trends that existed 5, 8 years ago that were just hype and there was
Oh,
really a valid use case. But now with the improvement in hardware, it just makes more sense for it to become mass adopted, and it becomes more realistic as opposed to just something that's cool. And there's, cool games that you can play on it.
yeah. Because it's almost like when the iPhone came out, everyone's like, and then now it's like, it always blows my mind when someone doesn't have an iPhone, because I feel like that's what the world, we all have iPhones. We're all Apple people, except for the people that hate Apple. So, anyway.
Yeah, yeah. And I think just with AI, like I kind of rolled my eyes at it because I just feel like people are using it as such a buzzword right now. And like again, it's not new, right? There's been language learning models like for years,
I
and
know.
what Chat GPT is built on and everything. Like these models have existed for years because they've been training. So it's not new, but it's now becoming widely adopted, and so that's why it feels new.
Yeah. Well, and probably media, the news is really, making people, getting you afraid and scared and whatnot. It's like, even like I use an app called Grammarly a lot.
Yeah,
And
not
I've
new,
been
not
yeah,
new.
no, I've been using that forever,
Yeah.
and I'll be honest, it's gotten better over the years, and now it works in my Apple Mail, and it works on my phone, and it works everywhere, you know, and I was
It
like
will
getting,
AI will be used to improve the existing apps that you use.
yeah,
Yeah.
period, and
Sure.
not take over the world like it says it's going to be. All right. Anything else that what did I miss anything, or I think we did a good job? Did you?
No, you hit it all.
I think we hit it all too. So, all right. So, how do we connect with you, and how do we, get a demo of Merri and all the above?
Yeah, so you can find us on Instagram. It's just at Merri, Merri. Our website is bemerri.com, BEMERRI.com. And then you can always email me, Randi at bemerri.com.
Well, look at this. We got the CEO's email out there. So, all right. And then, so I always ask all my clients, I'm calling you a client, podcast guests, what is your favorite part of a wedding? Which is probably going to be different because you said you've only planned one wedding. So it's always interesting to me to hear what everyone likes about a wedding.
Okay, so I have one obvious answer and one less obvious answer. The obvious answer, which is probably cheesy, is the vows.
Yeah.
Um,
No,
I think,
that's not. Some people love that part.
yeah, I think when people write their own vows, it just makes it
It's
so
so personal. Like I said, I find myself every once in a while a tear in my eye when you hear
yeah.
some of this stuff. Yeah.
You're kind of like inviting everyone, into the ceremony at that point. So love that on a personal level.
I don't think that's cheesy. So.
Thank you. The other thing that I love is seeing the different event flows.
Oh.
People choose, like, I think it's very like based on your personality. And you would know more about this than I do, but at our wedding, for example, it was really important to us. We wanted like everyone on the dance floor the whole time. Like we just
Yeah.
wanted it to be like a big party. And so we, had everyone went upstairs from cocktail hour and immediately started dancing. We came in and then they sat down for first course and then you danced and then we had entree, right? So it wasn't like you eat a full 3-course meal and then the party got started. We just wanted it to be a party the whole time. And then you go to other, people's weddings and it's just a totally different format. And I think it just speaks to the type of event that you want to have, which also just speaks to the type of person you are. And it's just interesting how that comes out.
And that's a great way of looking at it, because I always say, because you obviously are from the East Coast, if that's the type of wedding you had, and us here on the West Coast, we're boring. We don't. If you try to,
it was geo based at all.
yeah,
Like
100% it is, because if you try to do that here, because a lot of the wedding blogs and information is very East Coast bias, because that's where everything's being written, and it's very East Coast bias. So on the West Coast, you'll get a bride that goes, did you know that people can dance at this time and that time? I'm like, yeah. They're like, we want to do it. I'm like, it's not going to work. I'm like, unless you have people that are going to bum rush the dance floor and get it go, everyone's like going to look at you like, no, we sit, we eat dinner, and then we dance after dinner. That's how we do it here. But a really good friend of mine is a florist here locally, but grew up out in Jersey and got married in Rhode Island. And I got to experience that. And I'll be honest with you, you guys do it right, we do it wrong. Because it's so much more fun, because we're up, we're dancing, you're back, and it's more social, it's more interactive, everyone's talking. I mean, it didn't feel like the wedding went on forever,
right.
Right. Which sometimes I think when like we'll do a traditional like 12-course Chinese banquet, wedding, and dinner takes 2.5, 3, but if you were up in between, it would feel better.
Right. We had so many people come up to us and say like, this format is amazing. Like, I wish we had done this, and we didn't know that wasn't really that common in other places,
Yeah. No, you're onto something. It's funny too. I will say my wife and I will be married 14 years this year. And we, when we got married on New Year's Eve, and we wanted drunk food because we went past midnight. Around here, weddings usually end 10, 11 o'clock, very normal. We went past midnight because we wanted to ring in the new year. And so we did pizza, popcorn, and a bunch of stuff. It was before the late night snack trend. And I still have people to this day go, I had so much fun. And food just kept coming. And now you go to a wedding now, and that's pretty common, it just keeps coming.
I'm in New York. We catered in Shake Shack for our after party. Yeah.
Ooh, I love Shake Shack. I went to the Knot Gala and stayed at the hotel that was right across the street from Shake Shack, and I was like, I ate Shake Shack. It's not very. They're around here now. They're starting to get more popular, but where I live, there's not a Shake Shack close. So it's always when I travel kind of thing. I get excited that there's a Shake Shack. So
good.
It's the best. I will agree with you on that. So, all right, Randy, thank you so much for being here, sharing all your information about tech. I mean, it's just, there's so much to evaluate, so much that we need to, I think if you think tech a couple times a year, I think you'll do your business well. So anyway, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate your time.
Thanks, Kevin.
To our listeners, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Now That I'm Engaged, How Do I Get Married podcast, brought to you by Fantasy Sound Event Services. I hope you've enjoyed listening to this episode. Please get in touch with me if you have a topic you would like us to cover, or if you are struggling with your wedding planning. Please be sure to submit a question at podcast@fantasysound.com. I encourage you to check out our other episodes on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcast. And if you're a fan, we'd love if you would subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. It helps others find our podcast so they can learn from our guests too. And to everyone listening, happy wedding planning.